The music news for the streets, the music news for your beats, the news for the music stuff that you gonna need. We gon' talk about plugins, we gon' talk about gear. If it's news on this music, we gon' talk about it here. Let's go.
What up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your guy, Something. Hit the keys. Here today to tell you guys the real reason why Spotify is about to demonetize a whole bunch of artists, and it's not what they're telling us. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, today's video wasn't even gonna be about Spotify demonetizing artists. It was gonna be about how the industry is still making money off of independent artists. So are you really independent? But in doing research for the video, I fell down this rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. And then ultimately it led me to find out the real reason why Spotify is going to demonetize artists. It's going to be to pay the rich. And by rich, I'm not talking about well-established artists. Let's go ahead and take a look at what I'm talking about. All right, guys, so what I have here is the top 6 institutional shareholders of Spotify. This is very important, so make sure you guys stick with me on this one. The top shareholder representing 16.7% of total shares outstanding is Daniel Ek. He owns 32.3 million shares, and his net worth is $2.2 billion. He is one of the owners of Spotify, one of the founders. So when you think about it, again, Spotify, he didn't start off with that much money. So when you hear people say things like Spotify is going broke or so on and so forth, it's not that they're going broke, it's that they're not budgeting the money right. And as you see here, when this guy is making $2.2 billion, but he's only paying out 0.03 cents on a stream, it lets you know where his focus is. His focus is on making money. And then as we look right here, we have Sven Hans Martin Lawrenson. He's another founder. He's representing 10.9 total shares outstanding, percent of those shares, and he has over 21 million shares of Spotify. His net worth is $2.6 billion. Again, the same thing. When you think about him, he's another one of the owners, and between these two owners, they have a net worth of $4.8 billion. And again, they're not trying to pay artists, what we deserve because they created the platform. But ultimately, when you think about it, because of platforms like Spotify and Apple Music and so on and so forth, CDs don't exist anymore. So, your independent artist can't make $10 off a CD. Again, in another video that I did, it would take thousands and thousands of streams. I think it's 7,000, 8,000 streams in order to get $10. So it's much easier to sell one CD to one person than it is to sell, 7,892 streams or whatever the number is. All right, so this right here is where it gets kind of interesting, right? So as we look here, Bailey Gifford and Company owns 22 million shares of Spotify. That's representing 11.5 total shares outstanding. Why is that important, you may ask? Well, if we look here at the things that Bailey Gifford owns, they own almost everything. I mean, a lot of these companies own parts of everything that you can think of. So these are all the things that they own. And as we look here, what's important is they own a piece of Tencent Music Entertainment, and they also own a part of TPrice. You'll see why both of these are very important here in a moment. But as we look, this company owns so much, right? And so basically, this is what I mean by the rich getting richer. Now, stick with me for a second because this is all going to just make sense. So now as we come back here, we look at what is the next company that owns the most in Spotify, and it's Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley owns 17.3 million shares of Spotify, representing 9% of total shares outstanding. All right, so now you may be asking, why is that important? So then as we see here, Morgan Stanley buys 2.34 million shares of Warner Music Group, worth $105 million. So now Morgan Stanley, who also owns a piece of Spotify, has all this equity in Warner Music Group, which means they have a lot of music on the platform. So that means that every time a song plays that's in their catalog, they're not just going to get paid from advertising dollars, they're also going to get paid for the streams. So then as we look here, Morgan Stanley is investing more than $700 million to buy music copyrights in partnership with Cobalt. So that means they're buying even more music so that they can get paid even more money on streams. And as we scroll down here and look, they have artists such as Roddy Ricch, Max Martin, Phineas, Karol G, Stevie Nicks, Paul McCartney, Foo Fighters, all these different groups who are going to stream. It just, for them, it makes more sense for them to take money away from the artists who aren't going to make money and give it back to themselves because they own these catalogs. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about giving the artist money. It's about how they can make more money and how they can increase their profit or increase their money. So as we go back here and look again, remember I told you guys to stick with me for a second here on Tencent. So as we look here at Tencent, a lot of you guys may not know who Tencent is. Tencent is a huge company. It's one of the top 7 richest companies in the world. Tencent owns more than 16.6 million shares of Spotify, representing 8.7% of total shares. So as we look here at Tencent, Tencent actually owns 20% of Universal Music Group. If you're not aware, Universal Music Group, Warner Music Group, and Sony make up like 75% of the music industry. So owning 20% of Universal Music is basically going to put more money back in their pocket. Also with Tencent, Tencent basically owns China's version of Spotify or Apple Music or whatever it is. So they have their own music, whole entire streaming service in China. Plus they have music catalogs. I think one's called Vibe. It's like Korea's biggest artists and stuff like that. Well, they're just trying to put all that stuff on these other platforms so that they can get paid off these other platforms as well. Here's a nice documentary right here put together by Magnets Media. I love this channel. I watch it all the time. It's called The Secret Chinese Company That Owns Everything. They do own so much stuff in the technological world. It's crazy. They own like Epic Games, all kinds of video games. A lot of people say that China filters a lot of money through them. They also own part of TikTok. So when TikTok music gets going, Tencent's going to have their hand in there as well. So they're going to have some control over what it is that TikTok's going to charge and what they're going to pay out for streams as well, which is wild. And then the next company up here we have is TPrice Associates Inc. So TPrice owns 14.3 million shares of Spotify, representing 7.4 of total shares outstanding. So the thing about TPrice is it is very hard to find out what they invest in. But I do know a lot of these companies invest in them. So like Bailey and Gifford invest in them, Morgan Stanley invest in them. I know that TPrice has a ton of investments, but it is hard to find out what they invest in because it's just, there's so much stuff on investments with TPrice for obvious reasons. Every time you try to Google anything, everything else comes up but what they invest in. But the same thing probably applies with them. I would assume that they are working with other companies and that they have music catalogs. The thing is, right now, it's very popular for these investment companies to buy all these music catalogs. And that's why you hear about all these artists selling their music catalogs because they're getting 40, 50 million. But in return, they're not realizing that these investment companies are just putting it back on the streaming platforms and they're going to get paid more than the actual artist was because they're going to get paid on the front end and on the back end. And then another company that has stock in Spotify is Vanguard. If you don't know what Vanguard is, they're one of the biggest companies in the world as well. They literally have their hands in everything. I would definitely recommend that you Google them. Guys, you have to think. These major companies didn't get rich by paying their employees what they deserve. They got rich by paying their employees what the bare minimum that they would accept to work the job. And that's basically what us as musicians are getting right now is the bare minimum for these streams just to put our music out. So as we look here with Vanguard, Vanguard ups Warner Music stake to 10.4 million shares. So again, this is just another instance of these companies that have stock in Spotify investing into music companies so that they can double down. We already know right here, as we see here, that Billboard previously reported last year at the end of 2020 that Universal Music Group still holds about 3.4 ownership in Spotify, while Sony held about 2.85. So between those companies that I just named, that's about 70% of the ownership of Spotify. So 70% of the ownership, other than the 2 original owners, they all have music catalogs that they want people to listen to. So again, think about it. Do you think that they're honestly taking money away from other artists to give to other artists, or do you think that they're taking money away from artists to put in their pockets? I can't stress enough. That's it. That's it, fam. So then as I was doing my research, looking to see basically who owns what companies when it comes to like DistroKid and Spotify and all this stuff, because again, remember I told you this video was going to be about basically the industry still owning independent people's music and getting paid off of independence music. So as we look here at basically the investors in DistroKid, Spotify is an investor in DistroKid. So ultimately, you pay DistroKid. DistroKid gives some of that money back to Spotify, and then Spotify also is getting paid off your music. So that's another reason why I say it's not cool for artists, no matter how much money that you make per stream, it's not cool for them not to get paid for their stream because you're basically paying for distribution. So you're paying DistroKid, which is giving your money to Spotify, and in return, Spotify is putting ads on your music, and now they're not deciding to pay some of the artists, who deserve to get paid. That's jacked up. And so then you would think to yourself, oh, well, let's use another service like TuneCore. Well, it's still going to go to Spotify. And when you look here at TuneCore is owned by Believe. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, cool, Believe's a nice company, until you do some more research, and then you see Sony Music expands distribution reach, acquires French indie Believe in TuneCore. So even TuneCore is owned by a major record label. And so these are two of the biggest distribution platforms for independent artists, and they're owned by the industry. So you're paying the industry to get your music put online, and then in return, the industry is taking your music and making money off of it. That's kind of jacked up. So then as we look into more companies that have stock in the Spotify, we come across Access Industries. So you may wonder who Access Industries are. Well, they are the parent company of Warner Music Group. I mean, all these companies are working together, y'all. So they're the parent company of Warner Music Group. And as you look here, these are some of the things that this company owns. So they own a lot of stuff here. But as we look down here in the technology area, they own a piece of Snapchat, Square, Yelp, Alibaba, Rocket Entertainment, Deezer. This is the company that owns Deezer. Yep. So you can't even go to another party and put your music on streaming somewhere else because the major record labels own Deezer. And so as you see that, they have stake in Git, they have stake in Spotify, DigitalOcean, just all this stuff. Sony. I mean, like all these companies work together because they help each other get rich and then they stay rich together. Just think about you hanging out with your friends. If you can give somebody an opportunity and it's going to be your boy, who are you going to give the opportunity to? Your boy. Sometimes it's not all about becoming a monopoly because these companies understand that you can't be a monopoly. You can't monopolize streaming. You can't monopolize being a record label. You can't monopolize anything. There has to be a fair market share. So would you rather have a fair market share with people you get along with, or would you rather let somebody up and coming come and rock the boat and maybe shake things up and mess your business plan up, or maybe try to come for you and take your business out? So I guess what's the solution to the problem? Honestly, I don't know. I just thought I would bring all this information out and make you guys aware if you weren't aware. Because again, like I said, today's video wasn't even going to be about Spotify and these music companies, because what sucks is you can't even just go to the next music distribution company. Because what are you going to go to, Apple? Well, we already know how Apple is. Apple's not necessarily a company that's trying to look out for the artist either, especially when you think about it from the perspective of, look at Apple. Apple tries to sell you the same phone every single year. And when the new phone comes out, they make your old phone go slower so that you have to give them some more money. Same thing with their iPad. They make the same iPads. They make the same AirPods, basically with a small change, but they want to charge you an extra $250 or whatever for this new piece of gear, which is basically the same thing that you had the year before. Tidal's cool, but I mean, they pay more, but at the end of the day, they're owned by a company that just wants to take your money as well. And then plus with a lot of this, it's like, who listens to Tidal? So yeah, you can put your music on Tidal, but now you have to get your friends and you have to get people to move over to Tidal from Spotify, which people probably just aren't going to want to do because they're already comfortable with Spotify. And that's what sucks, is that your friends and the people who listen to these platforms don't understand the struggle that the artists who are putting the music on this platform are going through. So they don't understand hey man, these people that you're listening to, they're not living the life that they should be living, or they're not getting paid the way that they should be getting paid, because these companies, as you see, as I just showed you, all these companies that have all this stock in music and all this stuff are the ones that are still running these companies. So, at the end of the day, I don't have the solution. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you this is what we should or what we shouldn't do. Obviously, I feel like we should strike and we should boycott Spotify. We should boycott some of these platforms. But at the end of the day, you already know what's going to happen. It's going to be the thirsty artists who don't care about getting paid or don't care about any of that stuff. And they just want to put their music on the platform anyway. Those are going to be the ones that are going to get paid. I was watching this podcast, and it was it had a songwriter, a major songwriter on there, and he was talking about how songwriters should all go on strike, because the way things are nowadays, songwriters used to get paid off of points, off of album sales. Well, now the way streaming goes, basically you can't make a living being a songwriter anymore, because with streams, how are they going to distribute that money from streams when it's only 0.003 to 0.005? How are they going to be able to make it now? So songwriters aren't getting paid the same as they used to get paid. Producers aren't getting paid the same way they used to get paid. Beat makers, artists, so on and so forth. None of us are getting paid the way that we should get paid. And ultimately, that's because they've eliminated CD sales. They've eliminated physical sales of copies. And that's why originally, when I was going to talk about are artists independent anymore, unless you're out there selling actual physical copies of CDs or records, vinyls, because a lot of people are pressing vinyls again, you're not necessarily all the way independent. You're like more of an independent contractor for, Spotify, or you're an independent contractor for Apple Music, or like me. Like, I can't necessarily say that I work for myself, even though, I do YouTube videos, because at the end of the day, YouTube pays me. So I'm an independent contractor for YouTube. And that's one thing that you just have to realize. Yeah, you're your own boss. You can work your own hours. But at the end of the day, part of my check comes from YouTube, not all of it, not even half of it, but, I'm still employed by YouTube. And so that's how we have to think as artists still too. You're employed by Spotify, and you see all the companies that have a hand in Spotify. So you're employed by Universal Music Group. You're employed by Sony. You're employed by all these other groups. So, ultimately, are you really an independent? So I know this video was all over the place. I apologize for that. I was just that, again, I started one video, got off on a rabbit hole down another video, and I figured that information was probably more important to talk about, but I still wanted to bring up the original topic. So let me go in the comments what you guys think. You know what I'm saying? Let me know what you guys think the solution is. I think if you are a content creator and you're creating content to help folks, you should speak on this topic as much as possible, because at the end of the day, what Spotify is doing isn't right. It's not right for the owners to be billionaires, multi-billionaires, but the artists don't even get enough money to go out to McDonald's twice a week or twice a month and get a couple value meals. You know what I'm saying? You can get, 10,000 streams in a month, which I know may not be the most, but you can get 10,000 streams in a month and still not get enough money to go out and get a Big Mac meal. So make sure, if you guys do like this content, though, you drop a whole elbow on that like button, hit subscribe and that notification bell, so every time we bring you guys a new video, you can be the first to see. Appreciate you guys' time as always, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Some, hit the keys.